Israel and Hamas have agreed to a three-phase ceasefire deal after 15 devastating months of war in the Gaza Strip following the October 7th terror attack in Israel. Officials in the U.S. and Qatar say the deal will begin Sunday, coincidentally the day before President-elect Donald Trump is set to take office. The deal would free dozens of hostages, including 2 Americans. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says details are still being finalized as there are several unresolved clauses.
With more, we are joined once again by retired Marine intelligence officer and global security expert Hal Kempfer. Hal, nice to have you with us again. Hope you are well. Let's explain what we're learning about this deal. When could we expect to see hostages released, and how will these 3 phases work?
Well, Sarah, it's broken into 6-week phases. Phase 1 will be 6 weeks. That kicks in Sunday. And Sunday is when you're really going to start to see the hostages start to come in. It's an exchange. There's a few hostages that come in, and then Israel will release Palestinian prisoners, Hamas prisoners in many cases. They will be released into the Gaza Strip as well. So there's an exchange that's going to go back and forth, and that will go for the first 6 weeks. That'll be 33 Israeli hostages that will be released in that first phase. Phase 2 and Phase 3 are going to be negotiated while Phase 1 is going on, and part of that's to make sure that Hamas performs. One of the problems they had with that little short ceasefire early on was that towards the end of it, it was being extended, and then Hamas couldn't deliver live hostages. In fact, it wasn't clear that Hamas could keep track of hostages, and the whole thing just kind of broke down. So there are performance parameters built into this.
Hal, 2 of the phases of the deal, as you mentioned, have not been finalized. And as we've reported, Netanyahu still appears to have some issues. So is this really a done deal? Could fighting really end?
Courtney, it looks like this is pretty much done. I mean, there's so much, let's just say there's so much political gravitas. The announcements are made. President Biden made the announcement. Prime Minister Netanyahu's kind of holding off a little bit on making an announcement. There was a lot of concern going into today that at least one or more members of his coalition may actually drop out and his government would collapse because of this. But one of the things in the background on this is certainly President Biden's been pushing for this, but also President-elect Trump and their 2 lead negotiators have been sitting side by side. And it's made it very clear to Hamas and very clear to Israel that the U.S. absolutely wants to see this done. And it looks like that kind of pressure is what really got both sides to move this over the, well, I wouldn't say it's completely over the finish line, but pretty close. It's definitely set to start Sunday.
So let's talk about the politics here. Phase 1, as you mentioned, goes into effect the day before Trump is sworn in. And Trump has said that there would be hell to pay if the hostages weren't released before he took office. But today, as it's gone viral, Biden was asked if Trump deserved credit. And he turned around and he said, "Is that a joke?" What is your take on the politics of this deal and the U.S. role?
Well, obviously there's some fierce politics in Washington, but here's the deal. Yes, Biden gets to basically take credit to say this happened on his watch. But certainly everyone is acknowledging that President Trump coming in or President-elect Trump coming in, sending his negotiator to sit there in the negotiations, making it very clear that things would get far worse if they didn't get this done in time, played an enormous role in getting this done. So both President Biden and President-elect Trump can take a large degree of credit for this. I have to say, if there was one thing probably a little more decisive, I think that hell to pay comment reverberated around the Middle East, and I have no doubt that some were explaining to the Hamas negotiators exactly what that would mean, and that certainly got them to move a little bit faster on this entire deal being put in place.
Well, speaking of Biden, you saw it here on KTLA. He delivered his farewell address tonight. We have like 30 seconds. If you could, what do you make of the state of the world as Biden prepares to leave office?
Well, there's a lot going on. You got wars. You still got wars in the Middle East. You got a lot of conflict in the Middle East. Things are not done yet, even with this agreement. The Houthis are still very active. The Iranian tensions are still very strong. Syria is poised to go into another civil war, and certainly what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. So it's a very, very busy world. With that said, there's been some real progress in other areas, and I will say that NATO seems to be putting more investment in defense. So there are some good things, there are some bad things. I think it's mixed results. Obviously, if you're going out as president, you're going to claim more good things than bad things, and that's what happened tonight.
It's always a pleasure when you visit us and give us your expertise. Thank you so much, retired Marine intelligence officer and global security expert Hal Kempfer. We thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks, Courtney.